Hello, everybody. I'm Connie Dornan, and welcome to this week's Connie Chat. This week, we've got Dan Spulber joining us. Dan has taught at Brown University, University of Southern California, California Institute of Technology, and currently he is the Elinor Hobbs Distinguished Professor of International Business and Professor of Strategy at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. He has been teaching there since 1990. Dan, welcome, and thank you for joining us this week.
Thanks, Connie. Thanks for having me. It's great to be with you today.
Thank you. And just a few moments ago, Governor Pritzker announced that he is extending the shelter in place for an additional 30 days. Now, this brings a lot of questions to my mind, particularly for the housing market. How do you think that the housing market will be affected with this extended shelter in place?
Well, that's a very important question. And I think before I start, I'd like to say that our hearts and prayers go out to all the people affected by this very serious virus situation. And particularly, I'm thinking about all the frontline workers, including the doctors and nurses who are doing a really wonderful job. I'm very grateful to all of them, and I'm sure you are as well.
Oh, yeah. They're doing an amazing job. I have several friends and clients that are nurses and doctors right there in the front lines, and I'm hearing the stories from them. Many of them are just getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night and working just round the clock, and it's been this way for several weeks. So everybody in the medical industry, thank you very, very much for all your work.
Our thanks go out to all of them.
So, Dan, since you're the big economist, you're the man who's been around for a long time. You've seen the highs and lows of the markets. Today, I want to talk about the Chicagoland market. And so tell us, what are you?
Well, that's a great question, Connie. And I think it's important to think a little bit about the Chicago housing market to put the current situation in context. And here I'm drawing on the Case-Shiller Housing Index, which gives us, among other things, year-on-year price changes. In the 1990s in the Chicagoland area, we saw modest gains in year-over-year prices, generally between 1% and 5% housing price increases year-over-year. That gives us some notion of the normal in housing prices. Then in the 2000s, we saw heating up of the housing market with prices rising much faster, between 5 and 10% and even more in housing prices. Things were heating up there, and unfortunately it was followed by the great crash, the financial crisis of 2008, where we not only saw housing prices not increasing, we saw significant declines in housing prices, reflecting the effects of the financial crisis, which, by the way, included and was driven in part by the housing market itself because of the questionable mortgages, where people did not have enough money to meet the mortgage payments.
Well, you see, for me personally, I think we're a little bit different here in the Chicagoland market, right? So I don't think that this is the same as it was before. So, and the housing market crashes that we have, because it didn't start out as a housing issue, it started out as a health issue, and now it's affecting the greater economy and housing. However, when I'm taking a look at Chicago and I'm taking a look at my own business, and I sell a house probably every 3 days or so is my normal average. And now it's not so much. I've only sold about 8 houses in the last couple of weeks, whereas I'm accustomed to selling about 5 to 10 homes a week this time of year. But in speaking to several of my colleagues that are out in the East Coast that are slowly coming out of what we're in right now, they're telling me their market activity is pretty similar to what it was last year. They're also reporting multiple offer situations as well. So I am seeing a recovery on the East Coast. I am seeing buyers that are out there right now that are serious. Not a lot, but they're out there. They're still looking. They're still calling and emailing for information. And interest rates are so low and Chicago is so affordable that I just can't can't see 15 to 25% decline in pricing with all of these factors in play.
Well, I absolutely agree with you, Connie. I think that it's pretty clear that the 2008 was a financial crisis, and right now we're in the middle of a health crisis. And as yet, we don't have the financial crisis to accompany it. It's true that the economy is struggling, and many people are facing problems because of unemployment. And at the same time, the government is preparing assistance for small businesses and for people who've lost their jobs and who need some additional help. But I believe that once the health crisis begins to abate and the economy begins to open up, we're going to see a bounce back. In fact, as you're pointing out, people are looking. I think there's pent up demand, and we're going to see that pent up demand come back into the housing market as soon as it's safe for people to start looking. So with the financial crisis of 2008, it took 4 or 5 years for the bounce back to occur. But I think we're going to see a much faster bounce back. That doesn't mean, of course, that we're going to see huge increases in housing prices. I think we should expect one, so again, to be in the normal range for the Chicago area, which is between 1% to 5% increases in housing prices year on year. But I think we're going to see pent up demand as buyers come back, and the market will start to spring to life again.
I know, like in a previous conversation that we had, and I was telling you that I'm expecting a baby boom in 9 months. You had mentioned something very interesting to me. If you can share with our audience out there right now, that you think there's a little more parallel after World War II.
Yes, that's exactly right. I think that instead of the 2008 housing crisis or financial crisis, this is a little bit like World War II. Of course, World War II was a terrible disaster and very tough for people. But what we saw after World War II was rapid growth of the economy. It was the baby boom. People were having children. So we know what they were doing when they came back from the war. At the same time, we saw growth in industry and the employment in the return of the civilian industry. And really, we had many, many decades of growth that followed the war. I think here we will see a very rapid bounce back of the economy as the economy opens up. And I think at the same time, we're going to see people coming back into the housing market as the economy opens up, as people gain confidence as employment picks up again and people feel confident entering into the housing market. And in fact, I would argue that this is a fantastic time for people to get out there because we have very, very low interest rates. And yet, housing prices, particularly in the Chicago area, are rising fairly slowly, and prices are reasonable. So this is a good time particularly for first-time home buyers to get out there, and even for millennials who have been waiting to dip a toe into the water and think about purchasing their first home. So this is an exciting time, and I think over the next few months as we head toward June, we're going to see a little pickup in prices. We're going to see people coming back in the market. Now, the market won't be exactly the same as it was. We'll still have some social distancing. We'll have maybe more use of online options and virtual tours and so on. But that's a good thing. And I think that will lower the transaction costs for people. And we're going to see, as I say, return of this pent-up demand.
I really enjoyed speaking with you, Dan, only because from your standpoint as a leading economist, and you're one of the top economists in the country, so, and you are reiterating a lot of the stuff that I'm feeling and I'm sensing out there in the marketplace and discussing with my colleagues, with my own clients as to what's going on. And in the beginning of the year in 2020, there was a lot of pent up demand and we had like a contraction of inventory. And now inventory has shrunk even more, but that demand is still there. Okay. And as people get more confident and get back to working and the whole thing, I think what's going to happen is that once we're out of this shelter in place, we're still going to see shrinkage of this inventory, a lot more demand, and that's going to force the pricing to go up. And these people are going to benefit the most by taking advantage, as you said, about the low interest rates.
I agree with you. This is actually a great time to buy a house. As I said, interest rates are low. And remember, if you have a 15, 20, 30-year mortgage, you'll be benefiting from those low interest rates for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And so you can take advantage of low prices. Now, in the Chicago area, we, I think, have the benefit of great school systems, particularly in the North Shore. We have the nice lake area. It's very attractive. I think industry may take advantage of this area because it offers a great attraction for businesses. We've seen businesses like Boeing move here. And so I think it's a marvelous time to see growth in the housing market. So I don't see contraction. I don't see massive increases in prices either. I think we're going to return to the 1 to 5%. Of course, there are clouds on the horizon. We don't want to see too high tax increases because that can affect business and residential buyers. But this aside, the Midwest continues to be an attractive place for economic growth. And I think we're going to see an increase in growth of the U.S. economy as the overall as the restrictions get lifted. And it may be one of the best times to buy a house that we've seen in a very long time.
And you know what? In addition to all that, here in the Chicagoland area, we consistently rank in the top 25 in the country here in the North Shore for our school systems. We have affordable housing. You can't buy homes for the prices that we sell them here in the East Coast or West Coast. It's an affordable place, great for kids, great for families. We don't get hurricanes. We don't have mudslides. We don't have forest fires. It's safe. So we got water. So we're just going to be like the next big thing at some point.
Well, I certainly love living here, and I think it's an attractive area. And I think these prophets of gloom and doom are misguided. We're going to see a return, a bounce back of the housing market, and slow but steady growth of housing prices, which is a great opportunity for buyers overall, and first-time home buyers are really facing a marvelous opportunity right now.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us this week. I really appreciate your time and your expertise.
Well, it's been my pleasure to be with you today, and thanks very much.
All right. Take care. Bye, Dan.
Bye-bye.